What's good? How are you, bro? Welcome back. I hope you're staying on the grind, falling in love with the hard work, doing all the good shit, leaving all the bad shit behind. So today I just wanted to come and explain why I feel that the spiritual realm is real. Uh, Growing up, when I used to go to like my grandpa's rancho, I believe you call it ranch in English. It's just like what you would call the country here. So in Mexico, it's like people live like farmers. So it's like they have a house, and then the rest of the fucking it's like desert with animals and all this shit. Like you would go get water from the river and stuff like that. But when I would go, I remember like my uncles and everybody would just gather around a fire and tell scary stories. I don't know why, but that's something they like to do. And when I was little, I could not sleep, bro. Like after we went to sleep, I could not sleep after that shit because they would say the most horrific stories ever, and that shit would have me like scared, man. Like that shit would have me spooked. But yeah, the point that I'm making with this is that they would say, "Oh yeah, like all these like all this paranormal stuff like happened to them. Like they would see like ghosts, and they would see fucking animals that looked like animals but didn't look like animals that would like walk on 2 feet and all this type of like scary shit. And perhaps some of them were lying, and some of them perhaps were telling the truth. Now, this has never happened to me. I have never had something appear to me like that, like that. Well, except for one time when I was sleeping. And I don't even know if it's sleep paralysis or stuff like that because atheists will say, "Oh, it's just sleep paralysis," but I can't really confirm what it was. I don't know if I was dreaming or not. But I was just laying down and shit on my bed. And this happened like a few months ago. Yeah. So I was laying down on my bed, and it wasn't in this bed. It was in the old house that I used to live in. And I was just laying down, and I remember like waking up. And when I woke up, like I looked up and I seen like a big ass like shadow figure standing over me. And I tried to move, but I couldn't move. And what, like, you could believe me if you want to or not, but what it took for me to move was saying the word, like, I said, "Jesus, Father Jesus Christ, please help me." And that even took like some fucking effort to say because I tried saying it and I could not say it. Like, it was like something was like fucking holding me or like restraining me from saying Jesus Christ. But as soon as I said, "Father Jesus Christ, help me," like I was able to move and shit. I went under the blankets. Like I don't even know if this was a dream or if it was real. But I went under the blankets as soon as I said that because I was able to move, and I went under the blankets and shit. Like I grabbed the iPhone box, like iPhone charger box, like the things that you plug into the wall. I grabbed it and I threw it out my mom's room because it was across from my room and the door was open. So I threw it and nobody responded. I tried like screaming their name and shit like for help because I felt like someone was choking me, but I couldn't even talk. So until the next day I woke up, and that's when I couldn't tell if it was a dream or not, but I guess that was the only like weird shit that I had going on or that has happened to me like at all my whole life. But the reason I believe that the spiritual realm is more real than what we think, for example, like I said, when people would tell these stories, I was a child, I would get scared, but I'd be like, "Nah, they're just fucking bullshitting, like they're lying and shit." But recently I was watching this movie on it's a movie about Hector Lavoe. He's a salsa singer. I think he's the one that made salsa and shit. But he used to live in New York, like over there, like in Brooklyn and all that shit in the 70s, I believe. And he just went up in fame, he went up like with everything, fame, girls, money, everything like I guess a human could want, he had it. And you guys could go watch the movie. That shit is hella interesting. But it's Hector Lavoe, Lavoe, and I think that shit means the voice or some shit like that. So it was Hector the voice, but in French, I think that's what the movie said. That in French it was Hector Lavoe. So I was just watching this movie recently, and he's somebody that practiced hold on, let me fix this shit. He's somebody that practiced brujeria or santeria, I believe. So santeria is like fucking, what do you call it? Like people that pray to fucking idols and shit, and just like they have statues and all this shit. I think it's from, I don't know. I don't even know where it comes from, but it started in Cuba, I think. I don't even know if it started in Cuba. I don't want to give out like any misinformation, but basically I believe that that's like where it's mostly practiced, in Cuba and all those type of places like that. All those type of places like that, like Venezuela and all that shit. But yeah, he was somebody that practiced Santeria, and it's just like basically like praying to false gods, because they're not gods at all. It's just like demons and shit. So like praying to those type of shits. And so yeah, I'm just fucking getting mixed up in here. But yeah, he practiced that shit, and perhaps that was one of the reasons that he was able to go up in fame, like, and all this shit. And he had everything, like I said. He had fame, money, status, like what a man would want, he had it. But in the movie, he tried killing himself. So the movie is, they interviewed his wife, and so basically we're already 6 minutes in. But in the movie, he interviewed his wife. I'm not even getting to the point yet. But in the movie, they interviewed his wife, and his wife was the one that gave the account of like his life and shit, like what he did, how they met, or like all of this shit. And he had it all. He had money, fame, status, like I already mentioned, but he still tried to kill himself. He was still like, he still went to drugs to try and make himself feel happy, to try and make himself feel good. This is in all of his songs. He's always talking about it. Like one of the things in the songs that he said is that people always tell him that, oh, he's around fame, money, girls, parties, but nobody asks how he is. And that's in one of his songs. And that's true, because like I said, he had everything, and he still decided to try and take his life. Things were still going bad for him at the end of his life. And whether you want to take that as in, oh, it's just like some bad luck that he had or whatever, that's actually more spiritual than we actually think. Because you may get all this type of fame and shit from, I guess, bowing down to false gods and shit. And not even gods, just bowing down to demons and shit, and all this shit like you see people in Hollywood doing and all this shit. But they still live unhappy lives. They still live unhappy lives. So with all that said, that's not the only reason why I think, but just the way that a lot of people are going, like, turning to suicide. I've had some close friends of mine, their friends have committed suicide, and people don't want to, there's not a single person that you talk to that wants to commit all this shit, and they'll tell you, oh yeah, I don't like life and shit. All of that comes from demons messing with your head and putting these ideas into your thoughts. And if you don't know where these ideas come from, you take them as your own. For example, if you're an atheist, you may think, oh, like, this is just like the way my body works. Like, I'm just conditioned, or I'm just like, I guess, hardwired this way. But it's not you, it's demons messing with you. And since you don't believe in the spiritual realm, you just take those thoughts as your own. That's why a lot of people go and commit suicide. That's why a lot of people go and do all of these type of like crimes and shit, like bad things, because they take those thoughts as their own. So yeah, I recommend you guys go watch that movie. It's called Hector Lavoe, El Cantante, or in English, The Singer. And yeah, that's all I wanted to speak about today. So y'all gotta be careful out here, man, because there's a lot of people that, like I said, these atheists, and not to judge them, because I was one myself. I would look at, and I know I'm stupid for this shit, but because God is not even in those like crucifixes, or what do you call them? Yeah, crucifix. It's like where they have a cross, and then God is, or Jesus Christ is like represented, like how he was hanging right there. So I used to be an atheist myself. I would look at the crucifix, and I would just like, this is not something I'm proud of. because like I was a little bit retarded back then. But I would look at that crucifix and I would just go like this to the image of God, just being blasphemous and all this shit. So what I want to leave you guys with today is that if Christ was able to change me, and just he loved me so much, man, I can't even like put into words, but he loved me so much to the point where, how do I say it? Like, if Christ was able to change me, I know he would change you, bro, because like I said, I used to be blasphemous towards God, believing that God was just all a big lie and shit. And, you know, all this shit, I would, like I said, look at the cross. Whenever people talked about God, I would be like, nah, you guys are like retarded and shit. You guys are stupid. But I was the retarded one, because it's more real to believe that we come from God instead of just coming from nothing. So people think that the Big Bang, just because it's not like, people think that science contradicts the Bible, and that's not true. It's, for example, like if I grab this fucking dirty ass slipper, that's not mine, but if I grab it and if you look at it, there's two ways to look at it. The one, I guess you could say, like the scientific way to look at it is that this has, like, if you look at it closely with, or if you, yeah, like the way that people see atoms and shit like that, and neutrons and all that shit. I don't even know this shit has neutrons, but just like follow along. There's two ways to look at this. The scientific way, which is, oh yeah, this is just made up of atoms and it's solid because the atoms are packed and shit. I'm not a scientist, but this is basically what sticks to my mind, or what I can remember from this shit. But there's atoms that are closely packed, and that's why this shit is a solid. And there's another way to look at it, which is just like the outside, I guess you could say the normal way to look at it, which is, oh yeah, this is a slipper, you know, it has dirt on it. It's colored, it's brownish, yellowish. So I don't know if I'm making sense, but just because the Bible doesn't talk about science doesn't mean that the laws of science are not real. For example, gravity, all this shit. So yeah, and my point that I was making is that the way that science explains how the universe was made is the Big Bang. And they said that at the beginning, like, there was nothing, and then all of a sudden a light came, or a flash of light, and that's where we all came from, like the Big Bang. But in the Bible, it's also written, and God said, let there be light. So if you look at the way that science explains the Big Bang with the Bible, it kind of makes sense that we came from God. That's, like I said, not the only reason that I believe in God is because of, you know, like these stories that I have heard of, anything like that. But when you start to look at the evidence, not proof, because we can't prove anything 100%. But when you look at the evidence, for example, like how scientists explain the Big Bang, there was nothing and there was light. And the way the Bible explains it is that God said, let there be light. It kind of makes sense, at least to me. I don't know about you. But yeah, so I invite you to look at the evidence for yourself. Read the Bible, you know, without a bias. If you have been hurt before by whatever people you have been hurt before, because that's also the part of the reason that I didn't want to believe in God, was because I had been hurt before. You know, people did shit to me, and I was like, oh no, you know, God just let me alone. God cannot exist. God is a bad God. But, you know, I invite you to read the Bible by yourself. You know, start asking God to show you himself, to show himself to you humbly. Do it humbly, honestly, and don't be hurt. Don't let the hurt caused by other people turn you away from God, because that's not God's fault. Like we read in Genesis, I forgot what verse it was, but in Genesis it says that God saw that everything was good. But when the devil tempted Adam and Eve to eat the apple or whatever fruit it was from the tree, this world got cursed. So the world got cursed because we as human beings told God to step off, you know. And when we told him that, he respected our decision. He stepped off, and then chaos and destruction came into the world. So that's everything I wanted to leave you guys with today. Hope y'all have a blessed night. And like I said, read the Bible by yourself, read it for your own. Look at the evidence, if it seems like logical or not, and then you make your own decision. So don't let people that have hurt you turn you away from God. So like always, fall in love with the hard work, stay on the grind, and I'm gonna catch you later, bro. Good night.